Welcome to Soni Irabor Live. Tonight we'll be discussing issues we believe may find some worth of value in the way you reason, the way you think about the governance issue, about leadership question, and about corporate entity. This is Nigeria, but then there's also the globe, and Nigeria is a bona fide member of the global expression. So what do I mean by that? Okay, I have a very distinguished lady with me in the studio who is going to talk to us in ways and means that may or may not question issues that we take for granted or remind us about issues that we should not necessarily take for granted. For example, how does government policy affect corporate governance? How do corporations survive when policies by government are made? Now, you may look at Nigeria, but you also look at the global issue. You begin to ask yourself, where are we going? How should we manage our thoughts processes? The Nigerian man is a man for all intentions. The Nigerian woman is also a woman for all intentions. But the truth is, they are bona fide members of the Nigerian polity. So I have a lady that I said is here to tell us more about how to train or remind us of some of the responsibilities we have and we owe ourselves and the nation at large. Her name is Mary Laniyan. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Anybody who sees you like this will say, okay, Mary, she looks so innocent, so young, and all of that. They don't know you're a grandmother.
I am a glam mother.
Glam, I like that. Yes, so, yeah, my highfalutin introduction brings us to the question of who is a Nigerian, who is a corporate entity, and who is the government.
Interesting. I am a Nigerian. You are a Nigerian. So I guess if you're born in Nigeria or if you have nationalized as a Nigerian, then you are a Nigerian.
Okay.
In terms of business entities, if you have a business registered in Nigeria, maybe micro, small or medium enterprise, then you are a business entity in Nigeria. Obviously registered with the CAC, the Corporate Affairs Commission. And of course, we have multinationals who have also come into Nigeria to register their businesses. And they do business in Nigeria. Then government, right? Government, as we have it today, are people who we have elected into offices, like our president, the ministers that have been assigned to different ministries, the civil service instrument, the civil service as an institution is always ongoing. All of them put together, our state governors, these are the people who govern us as a nation. Local government, for me, which is the most important tier.
Finally, they get a breath of fresh air.
Finally, they are giving them the autonomy that they deserve because they are closer to the people. They can go out there and engage with the people. It's important we know who our local government chairman is. It's important we engage with all our local government personnel so that they can really understand the pain points of the people. So for me, the autonomy for local government, it's a welcome development. And I really think the governors should welcome them, work very closely with them, because that is the only way you can truly give the dividends of democracy to the electorates.
Giving some clear thoughts. Okay, good enough. But then, when you look at the way policies are made,
right?
I don't think, and forgive me if I say that, forgive me, I don't think we're taking the people, when we're not taking them into consideration and giving them a real role to play so that they can feel important in the polity of things. What do you think?
In terms of policy formulation and tracking, I think we can do better. Let's start with the business, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Businesses in terms of the corporate sector They contribute about 55% to the GDP. That is a lot. And that is given the challenges we have in terms of our policies and the regulations in government. In spite of those challenges, our corporate entities are doing a lot. The service sector, for example, banking, insurance, real estate sector, telecommunications, they're doing a whole lot and they're employing a number of people. So imagine what success might look like if our policies and regulatory framework are not taking a somersault ever so often. Imagine what that might look like. So I think in the area of policy formulation, we can do so much more. And our regulatory framework obviously needs to be reviewed. We can't keep doing things the same way and expect a different result. Saying that, I know leadership is not for the faint-hearted. We know that we live in a very complex world today. We live in a world that is marked with volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So things are always changing. So because things are always changing, we must always review.
Who do you review it with, and will they listen to you? That's the issue.
That is why we have the different, arms of government. That is why we have all our ministers in all the ministries. They need to come together to work together in a coordinated manner. I think one of the problems we have with policy formulation is that we are mostly working in silos. I think so. I feel we're working in silos. And this is not, it's not just an African thing or a Nigerian thing. Every society must continuously inspect and adapt, continuously evolve. I mean, let's remind ourselves of what happened with America, 9/11. After 9/11, they created the Department for Homeland Security so that they can have the agencies talking to each other better. Because one of the problems they realized was that some agencies had, critical information that was not shared.
Okay.
So how can they better share information? Okay, they have to work together. They have to come up with new ideas. They came up with, Department of Homeland Security. So this is what we need to constantly review. When things are not necessarily working, we need to get back to the drawing board.
The insecurity in Nigeria.
Yes.
From what you just said.
Yes.
Narrows it strictly, squarely into the Nigerian situation. Insecurity is so rife.
It is.
And there appears to be no effort made to ensure that this is reduced to the barest minimum. So what can we do?
There's so much we can do.
There's no Department of Homeland Security.
But we have our different security agencies.
Who don't work together.
They are perhaps they can work better together. I mean, I've just cited that example. They looked back and they thought, you know what? We had that information. If we had worked together, perhaps we may have averted this incident. So it's about, like I said before, continuously inspecting and adapting, and for all these agencies to really come together, for the love of country, obviously, to say, how can we better work together? You've just talked about security. There are so many reasons we have insecurity today. The Nigerian problem is 65 years old, okay? It didn't start in this administration. Now, when we talk about security, talking about trying to make Nigeria better, there's a saying that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time to plant a tree is now. So yes, the Nigerian problem may be 65 years old. Maybe we should have started 65 years ago. But the next best time to start is now. And it calls for all hands on deck. I know we started talking about government and all, but it has got to be all hands on deck.
It's not just government alone.
It's not just government, it's everyone, okay? It's everyone. So, talking about security, England, I lived in England for so long, and I can tell you that they spend about, 360 billion on social services, on social security and social services. Now let's quickly go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs: physiological needs, right? Security, belonging, self-esteem, and, self-actualization. A hungry man is not thinking about self-esteem. A hungry man is not thinking about self-actualization. So there are different, you're laughing, there are different factors that come to play.
You're giving me a picturesque reason to think deeper.
Yes. So if we want security, the basic needs of people must be met. In the United Kingdom, they are not stupid spending 360-something billion annually on social security. Because if people have their basic dignity, kept, and people have their basics in place, like housing, like, food, then they have very little to worry about. Now, talking about having housing and food and all of that, when you're unemployed, you can be rest assured that you can go for your housing benefit to pay your rent or pay the interest on your mortgage, and you will have some stipends that can meet up in terms of groceries and toiletries and all of that until you get your job. Okay? So your dignity is preserved in that period where you are out of work. Okay? And because your dignity is preserved, because you know that you have something to fall back on, it's a social safety net. You're not tempted to go and do anything stupid. Instead, you're busy looking for your next job opportunity. Okay? So we need to consider all the factors. Why do we have insecurity? People are idle, and the devil will find work for idle hands.
It's so philosophical. I know I did not quite introduce you the way I ought to have. Tell us about yourself first, because the next question I'm going to ask after you tell us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Mary Laniyan, I'm a mother of 4. I'm a grandmother. I'm a systems performance coach and an executive coach. So I help organizations become a better version of themselves, individuals, teams, and the wider organization. Because the problems organizations face are mostly relational and psychological. Okay? So you can have a team of like 10 great engineers, but they're not working well together because the problems they face on a day-to-day basis are systemic. So
they're more concerned with those systemic problems.
They should be. They should be concerned with the systemic issues, because the systemic issues are not so tangible, but they are anti-patterns in their system. They are anti-patterns in terms of, they are blocking the flow of value. Okay?
Blocking the flow of value.
Yes.
That's a major issue in Nigeria.
It is. It is. We have a lot of systemic issues. Absolutely.
Yeah, continue your self-introduction before I go for yes.
So that's what I do. I work with executive coaches so that they can become more of, I work with executives as a coach so that they can become more of a leader than a boss.
Leader?
Yeah, more of a leader.
Leader?
Yes.
Let's define leadership. Who is a leader?
A leader, I think, is someone who is more concerned about developing more leaders. Someone who can show
more concerned about developing more leaders.
Absolutely. Leaders, that should be their primary role, to develop more leaders. Okay? Because we need to always think about succession planning. Okay? Who's going to come after me? Am I mentoring them? Because a lot of people get into that position, they were not even ready for it because no one really mentored them. And let us not forget that the higher you go, the less of your technical skills that's needed. You need more of people skills, and that is where coaching can really help.
Manage people and resources.
Exactly. But yes, managing people, showing up as a leader with a face, showing up more as a leader than as a boss. Sometimes you may need to be a boss.
Leadership by example.
Leadership by example.
So where's the boss when you say boss? I mean,
well, so I think we have a lot of bosses than we have leaders. I think so. I think we have a lot, and that is coming from the industrial era, a time when we mostly worked with our hands, not thinking. Okay, we didn't work with our brains mostly. So that style of leadership, where we are so directive, is still lurking. Okay, so people are used to giving directions. You know, you go and do this, you go and do that, and in the industrial era, that worked fine because people were paid to use their hands. But in the knowledge economy, now we're talking about AI for that matter. People are paid to think. So if people are paid to think, you need to ask yourself, are you creating, as a leader, are you creating the right environment for people to think?
We're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we need to really define the essence of being a leader and why leaders should be trained as leaders before they even begin to lead people. We'll be right back.
Everywhere across Nigeria, with news coverage driven by the quest for solutions, News Central brings you the stories that matter.
Bringing you major headlines and latest developments from the creeks of the Niger Delta, South Nigeria. I am Austin.
Live from the Federal Capital Territory, I am Joshua Imarai, bringing you exclusive insights and updates straight from Abuja.
Covering the rich cultural heritage and dynamic events of the North, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Covering the ongoing developments and triumphs of the Northeast, I am Umaru Kirawa, live from Borno.
Bringing you stories of growth and resilience from the Southeast. I am Chinwe Ukele.
In the intensity of Nigeria's middle belt, I am Chizoba Anyowe, bringing you stories of diversity and latest happenings from Jos.
With a dedicated team of reporters across the nation, News Central is empowering viewers to shape the future of their communities. Because your story is our mission. Stay informed, stay connected with News Central, with fearless reporting on what matters most.
Welcome back. Yes, I promised you we were going to ask certain questions that I think we ought to come to terms with. Do leaders need coaching, training, anything of the sort?
We all do. So, and leadership is no exception. And like I said before, when leaders go up the ranks, they tend to get promoted based on their performance in terms of their functional or technical roles. But as you go up the ladder, you do less of those kind of functions. You're more into managing people, you're more into strategy. And of course, this is where coaching becomes important for you as a leader, so that you can then optimize the people at your disposal. That is so important. And as you were just talking about, do leaders need coaching? A case study came to mind. Alan Mulally. Alan Mulally, it's on the internet. He's the man that saved Ford the motor company. He came into Ford when Ford was 17 billion down. And they brought him up to turn things around for Ford Motor Company. And when this man came in, the first presentation that was being done by the directors and the executive team, one of the leadership team members, he was doing a presentation. And of course, he hadn't met his target, maybe something wasn't quite in place. And Alan Mulally was like, how can I help you? What do you need to succeed? So that's the kind of leadership we're talking about. Not why didn't you do that, or be brash or embarrass
Authoritarian,
authoritative,
bullying.
But instead, what do you need to succeed? Because you see, as leaders, one of the things we must do as leaders is to remove impediments, organizational impediments. So that was a typical leadership question. How can I help you? What do you need to succeed? And all of a sudden, what this man had done there was starting to change the culture. And then all of a sudden, a culture that was perhaps mostly competing is now slowly changing into being collaborative. Then the other members...
Competing, collaborative.
Absolutely. And then people are saying, oh, I can do this for you, I can help you do this, I can help you do that. But before that, they were perhaps competing with one another. But now the leader is saying, how can I help you? How can we better collaborate? Because we are in this together. So it's a you fail, I fail kind of, you win, I win. So that collaborative, not just collaboration theater, but we are actually collaborating because I want you to win as much as you want me to win. So it's important we're able to span boundaries.
So the whole idea of PhD, not Doctor of Philosophy syndrome, but PhD pulling down, should not arise at all.
It should not arise at all because we should rally around the common goal. If you're working for an organization, why are you competing? You should be collaborating. And this is where boundary spanning comes in. Because you see, when two people come together, the chances are we will achieve what neither of us can achieve on our own.
That's a good one.
Exactly, that's the nexus effect. So you can do some amazing stuff, I can do some amazing stuff. But when we come together, we can do magic. We can make magic happen that neither of us can do on our own. And that is why it's so important that we create a culture of collaboration, not unhealthy competition. Healthy collaboration, healthy competition.
How do you manage? We're going to go to Trump later on. Trump and Kemi Badenoch. Okay.
Yes.
Well, how do you manage corruption that is staring you in the face, and sometimes you look at yourself and say, I can do it? No, it's against the law. Where's the rule of law here? How do you actually control corruption?
The rule of law in Nigeria. We have the judiciary, which should be our last bus stop when it comes to justice for the common man. The interesting thing about systems is that the system always wins. A system will deliver what it is designed to deliver. So if we have a system that is not working for us...
You say designed to deliver. Is it not the law that designs it?
Well, constitutionally, when we set up organizations, even when we just even look at it in terms of an organizational entity, we have our mission, we have our vision, right? And we have, procedures, we have human resource, we have guidelines in which to work. Those things are there, but are we enforcing them? Okay? Are we leading by example? So like the example I just gave, the new leader came in and set a different tone. And from then on, you start to see a new culture emerging. Because the interesting thing about culture is that whether you decide to design a culture or not, a culture will emerge by default.
Good or bad?
Good or bad, a culture will emerge. So if you want a particular kind of culture, you have to be intentional about designing that culture. For example, talking about nations, I've never been to Japan, but it's on my bucket list. I hear if you misplace your wallet or something, the chances that you get it back is very, very high. So I guess they have sort of rallied round a national purpose as a people, okay? They have rallied around the kind of image they want people to have about Japan and the Japanese people. So if a typical or an average Japanese person perhaps finds a wallet belonging to one Soni Irabor or Mary Laniyan, even if they find $1,000 in it, it is not enough for them to tarnish the image of their country. Instead, they would rather go and give it to a police officer or whatever to say, I found this on the streets of Japan. So having that purpose, that common purpose that binds us together. Common purpose, yes, that binds us together. The Israelis, they have it. You know, that common purpose that binds us together, which Kemi is also trying to do for the United Kingdom right now.
How?
I think she wants to preserve the culture, isn't it? She wants to preserve the British culture, but we'll come back to that.
Okay, so dealing with corruption then.
Yes. So dealing with corruption, we have to be intentional about it. So now things have moved on. We have technology. We can use technology for our processes to make it more transparent. Definitely, if we want to do that. But sometimes you find that maybe a minister might come into one of our agencies and they want to go digital, and then someone else comes and scraps it. So we need to be incremental in our initiatives. So if we want to curb corruption, we need to be intentional about it. Now, talking about corruption, people are the same all over the world. People are the same, white or black. People are the same all over the world. But the system compels people to do the right thing most of the time. So if you...
the checks and balances.
The checks and balances.
Respect.
The checks and balances must be enforced. And in order to enforce that, you have to put those structures in place. Take, for example, you do a 25 in a 20 speed zone. Within 2 weeks, you get a ticket in the post. Okay? You get a ticket in the post, and they'll give you like 2 weeks to pay a certain amount. If you don't pay that amount in that time window, I'm talking about the UK now, which I'm familiar with. If you don't pay that amount in that time window, it might double. And you will also pay the court charges. So now you tell me, if you get an £80 ticket, and you know if you don't pay within 2 weeks, it might become £160. You're going to pay very quickly. Very quickly. So, and then another reason they are able to do that is that they have data. They have data.
You can't hide.
You can't hide. There's nowhere to hide. The moment they catch your plate number, they know where you live. You can't hide. So the data is there. And because they have the data, they are able to leverage that and generate income as well for the country.
Why do we get that feeling that we can actually do things and get away with it?
Because those checks and balances are not in place.
They're not there, or they're not enforced?
They are not, well, perhaps it's there, but it's not strictly enforced. So we need to start enforcing those checks.
Well, perhaps it's there.
But not strictly enforced.
You already confessed that you are used to this, you're familiar with the UK. Because the Nigerian one, you get here to get to.
You know, because there are a lot of variables at play. So many variables at play. And this is where government needs to really ask themselves.
Is there anyone above the law?
Nobody should be above the law. Nobody should be above the law. But more importantly, how can we bring some sanity into our society? What is the 20%? I'm talking about the Pareto principle now. What is the 20% that we can do, focus on, to give us the 80% benefit? Because there's only so much resources. Government can't do everything. They can't do everything. So they need to prioritize. What do we need to do first? What might be the ripple effect of doing this particular, facing this particular problem? You see?
Okay. We're so tempted to bring the issue of our new, he's not a kid on the block at all, he's a baba on the block, Donald Trump. He's a very powerful man all of a sudden.
Yes.
So we now have an American empire. That's the way it's beginning to sound.
Look.
That's America or USA. Then UK, Kenny Bagnall, who is even more visible than the Prime Minister. What's going on globally before we even bring back the Nigerian scenario?
Globally, to be honest, I think we have a leadership crisis.
Leadership crisis?
I think we have a leadership crisis.
It's a serious one.
I believe so, because sometimes you wonder what is happening in the world. In spite of all the technological advances, in spite of all the beautiful gains we have, man has gone to the moon and back. But somehow it seems humanity is retrogressing. Look at the war. with the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Yes.
Look at Ukraine.
Russia.
Look at the people who are displaced in Nigeria. The farmers and the herdsmen, you know. So unfortunately, it seems that humanity is retrogressing. But if we are intentional about changing things, like I said, the next best time to plant a tree is today. It's never too late, but we have to be intentional about it.
How do you achieve intentionality when there's so much going wrong, out of control, and things like that?
Honestly, I don't think I have all the answers. But like I said before, leadership is not for the faint-hearted. For those who have been brave enough, like our president, people who have been brave enough to step forward to say, I want to be your president. People like Kemi Badenoch, who are ambitious enough to want to be Prime Minister.
Did you say bad what?
Badenoch. Kemi Badenoch, sorry.
No. There was something, okay, sorry, let's not go that way.
Kemi Badenoch, who is courageous enough to step forward as the conservative leader. Donald Trump is back again.
Making America great again.
He wants to make America great again. That is not a bad thing if you want to make America great again. I think, but how do you want to make America great again? And I find it interesting that he's back as president, but then again, the people have made their choice, right? Because at the end of the day, like I said, systems will always find a way to reset themselves. And you can't help but ask the question, what went wrong with the Democrats? Did they go too far left? And the people felt, you know what? Donald Trump may have all these flaws,
but he's still good at
is the man we need to pull things back, so to speak. Not minding everything else. Not minding everything else. Because I saw in the news clip how the construction sites are now empty, how farmers are complaining, because apparently the people who worked those jobs
were immigrants. Have to go. That also brings to question the plane crashes that happened within 48 hours of each other. 2 or 3 plane crashes.
But that could have just been a coincidence.
Well, they said because the immigrants who were part and parcel of the control elements were asked to go. So there was a gap in perhaps skilled people. So many planes in the United States at a given day. Thousands of planes taking off and landing.
Absolutely.
You need some kind of systemic control.
But that is such a shame if that's what really happened, because the aviation sector is a high reliability sector. High reliability, we call it HRO. And for that kind of sector, you should be sensitive to the fact that we can't afford to just pull people out.
On impulse.
On impulse. We need people to be trained, perhaps, to take over certain roles. It would be highly irresponsible if they did that to a sector like that. If they did, then does that explain the accidents? Maybe.
That is very serious. No, because Donald Trump now, also blamed the mistakes and errors on the immigrants. I think that's what gave it away, if anything. Well, that's following the news.
Yes.
Then Kemi is not the Prime Minister of Britain.
No, she's not.
But she's very vocal.
Well, that's the Nigerian in her.
Really?
Perhaps. Perhaps that's the that's the Niger factor in her. Well, Nigerians, you know how we are. We show up. We go the whole 9 yards. We are tenacious. We are go-getters. We do a fantastic job. And Kemi is in a system where she can really come true, you know. I admire her for that, because to come up those ranks in a conservative party takes a lot of grit, and she obviously has that. She has, displayed that. Kemi, for me, some similarities in terms of her policies with Trump, but I see her as a pragmatic, assertive woman. And I'm inspired by her, to be honest, because to achieve what she has achieved is no small feat. It is not. Some of her policies people may not agree with, But the thing is, she has identified as British. She's more British than she is Nigerian. That is her choice, and I think that is okay. She's taking a high, very strong stand on immigration. She wants to protect the British culture. She's married to a white man. She has children that are British. She wants to protect it for her children, I guess. So she's taking a very hard stand on immigration. In terms of what she's proposing, I think she's not saying that people shouldn't come to the UK. I think she's just saying we need so many years, we need people to be imbibed into the system, we need them to integrate before we give them the full citizenship.
This is not the time she should be making that statement. She is not the Prime Minister of Britain.
Not yet.
So Stammer,
yeah,
I hope he doesn't stammer.
Yeah.
He's the man who probably, unless he agrees with her, should make such a statement.
Yeah.
And apply.
She's shadow, Prime Minister, if you like, because that is how we sort of do it in the UK. So that is why during PMQs, the Prime Minister question time, you see them having this banter back and forth. So she's trying to make a case for what she might want to take to the polls.
At liberty, therefore, to accept?
Not necessarily. Okay. No, not at all. She's just making her case for what she would likely do when she becomes Prime Minister.
Okay. Right. There's Africa. And I'm looking at a young man about 35.
Right.
Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. The thing about Burkina Faso, Thomas Sankara was equally as daring and young.
Yeah.
I think he was even 27 when he
was very young.
So Traore is making bold moves. He paid off the debt.
Yeah.
$4.something billion. And then he went into setting up hospitals, farming instruments and everything. He's a man who is not just talking, but doing.
Yeah.
In Africa.
Yes. And in uniform.
Yeah.
So,
please, can we put it into perspective?
I guess you can love your country even though you're in uniform. What the people of Burkina Faso need is just a country that works. A country that works, whether you are in uniform. That is it. A country that works. We can go about our business. We feel safe. We can eat. Our children can go to school. That is what they want. And it doesn't matter whether the person at the helm of affairs is in uniform or mufti. Okay? Now, I know the world has moved away from men in uniform. And this is where we need to really do the best we can with democracy. Do we necessarily want military dictatorship in Nigeria? Of course we don't. If we don't, then we in Mufti, we must ensure that we are doing what we should be doing to ensure that we are electing our people in a very democratic way, and we ensure that people get the dividends of democracy. Because after all, the definition of democracy is for the people, by the people, right?
I started laughing when you talked about definition. Do you know India is saying their form of democracy is different from the American form of democracy?
And I guess that is okay.
Nigeria is saying their form of democracy is different from the UK form of democracy.
Well, I guess that is also okay. You need to bring it to your local context. But at the end of the day, when we say bring it to your local context, it still means the same thing. Governance for the people, by the people. Okay? So the question we need to ask ourselves is, in this democratic dispensation that we've had now since 1999, are people really feeling the difference of what it means to be in a democratic dispensation?
That's a great question that I would like to throw back at
me. Well, people are complaining, and I think that is also coming from the policy we talked about earlier on. When policies are somersaulting ever so often, government need to work together better Can we have a better Nigeria? The answer is yes. We have the capacity and the capability, and we have the people, over 200 million people. And Nigerians are hardworking people. And for me, Nigerians are the easiest set of people to govern. And I say that because the average Nigerian wakes up and they just get on with it. We get out there, we do what we have to do, we hustle. As early as 4, people are on the road going to work.
But why are we allowing crime to fester? You know, Yahoo, kidnapping, rituals, unheard of.
It's terrible.
And things like, I mean, when we have fantastic young men who are great musicians, great movie makers, you know, great everything. Where is it? The youth of today.
Yeah.
The youth of today. That's a song that the musical youth made in 1982 or thereabout. They say they want to be heard, they want to feel, they want to get.
Yes.
What are we getting? What are we doing to our youths?
Our youths, I think Nigeria has failed our youths. I think so. Growing up in my time, we could play outside. For 2 hours, 3 hours, sometimes our parents don't even know where we are. In our neighbor's house, we could play. And we had good schools. Okay? My secondary school days, believe it or not, I lived in Lagos. I went to Mary Laniyan Secondary School. I was in the same school with children of ministers, children of governors. As a matter of fact, the Toyota Crown that used to take Jakonde, used to pick me up in my house.
Really?
Because the daughter was my friend. Sometimes I will walk to their house and we will go to school together. So I used to see Jakonde almost every day in his pajamas. I will kneel down and greet him. Okay? We had schools for everybody. Now we have created all sorts of tier system in our system. And by and large, we don't have plans for our youths. We did try with National Youth Service to integrate our youths. We tried with that, which is a great scheme. We did a good job with our government schools. But by and large, we need more vocational engagements for our youths. Because they don't feel heard, they don't feel seen. We need to engage more with our youths. And this is where the autonomy for the local governments might really, really impact our youth. Because then you're dealing with the youth in your local government area. You are able to engage more with them, if you see what I mean. You're able to, consult with them, find out what their pain points are, what initiatives do they want. And we need to get away from all these pushing initiatives. We need to consult with them and do a pulling instead of pushing, to say, what do you guys want in your community? What is missing? So we must have this developmental mindset when we're talking about projects. And
someone said, why are they always changing leaders and governors and all of that? By the time you know the name of this governor, they've changed him, so you have to learn another name to replace him.
But I don't have a problem with changing governors. The problem is we don't have a strategy.
Okay.
Listen, if you have a strategy for 30 years, Governor A comes, picks up the strategy, does this much, another governor comes, continues from where you left off.
Okay, so that way he doesn't have to feel like he did it himself and let you see.
Exactly. We need to move away from pet projects. They are too, yes, we need to move away from my project. No, it is for the nation, it is for the people. So we must have this strategy that is long-term. Of course, we must continue to review those strategies.
It's like a relay team.
Absolutely. So I hand over the baton to you. You continue. But what do we have? This governor will come and scrap or stop what the previous governor had done. That way we keep going back, because we never really gain the kind of traction that we deserve as a nation.
So
because
Bob Marley's assertion that one step forward, 2 steps backward.
Something like that. If we have that kind of, approach.
Jeez. How do we get the youth to believe, one, in themselves, and 2, believe that we mean well for them, and then they should feel part and parcel of the process of making the country forward.
Like I said just now, the local government autonomy should help because the local government is closer to the people. We can then begin to engage with our youths. I mean, the youth, we had NSAS, we had End Bad Governance as well. So obviously people are agitating. But when you have to really worry about what you eat every day, it's not that you don't care about good governance, but you're so busy trying to feed yourself, okay? So government really they need to step up because they've been elected into office. They should deliver on their mandate.
I was told, and I stand corrected, that when American presidents are sworn in, between that November 4 and January 20, they go into some kind of tutelage.
Right.
Some kind of coaching and training that makes them who they are and how effective they want to be. We don't have that here, do we?
I'll be surprised if we don't. I'm sure we do. I'll be surprised if we have. I've never been in government, so I don't know.
If we do, then why don't we have that, the Nigerian element in us that will say, I am Nigerian and I'm proudly Nigerian?
I think most of us are proud that we're Nigerians. I just feel
okay, go on.
We are very individually driven.
How? Why?
Now, the average Nigerian has grit, resilient and all. But somehow Nigeria can be better than it is today because there's no... I often wonder sometimes maybe that is why our current president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, brought back the old national anthem.
Okay.
That talks about, though tribe and tongue may differ, but in brotherhood we stand. Sometimes I wonder whether he brought that back so that we all have like a rallying point, something we can hold on to say, this is what makes us Nigerian,
Something to hold on to, indeed.
Because we are all so busy hustling for our daily bread. And because we are hustling for daily bread, like I said, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're not thinking of that self-actualization. We're not thinking of, Nigeria in a collective way.
Why is it that Nigerians, when they leave the shores of Nigeria, they become the very best? They're taken away by those other countries. But when they were here, we didn't see that. So, what are you saying, ma'am? We
add value, a lot of value to other countries. Our doctors, our nurses, our teachers, IT. I spent the better part of 3 decades in the United Kingdom. I added a lot of value there. I opened a business there. It's the system, the environment. And that is why we need our government here to create an enabling environment so that businesses can thrive, so that security can be better, so that people can be gainfully employed. Until we have that, we will keep having problems. But again, what are the policies that government is, putting out there to support businesses? Sometimes the policies are working at cross purpose, right? So it's this system. You're trying to regulate prices, but at the same time, you've taken away subsidy. The electricity has increased by almost 300%. How is a business supposed to survive when you have increased the electricity tariff by almost 300%? You have floated the Naira. The Naira wasn't exactly so strong. So I can understand that we need, just like gold goes through fire, it's not going to be easy. It might take time. But if we start becoming more consistent with our policies and our regulatory framework, revisit them to say, where are the gaps? What are we doing wrong? Is it a competency gap in terms of policy formulation? Is it that we are not tracking our policies properly? Is it that we are not consulting with the stakeholders enough? Okay, so that we can see where it is working, where it isn't working, what we need to tweak. Because there's a cycle to policy formulation, right? It's not a one-time thing. So it always comes down to the system. So we really need to ask ourselves. We have the National Orientation Agency. They should be working with the presidency to say, okay, what kind of a purpose do we want to put out there that we can all rally around, that people can buy into? Okay? You wake up as a Nigerian and this is the reason you're a Nigerian. At the moment, I don't think we have that. This is the reason I'm a Nigerian. But everybody is so busy doing stuff. And we're trying our best. Look at the Nollywood sector. They're doing great. The music sector, the fashion industry. As you can see what I'm wearing, we're both wearing, our native attires. We need to also take the responsibility to make Nigeria great. We need to love our country. We need to start doing things in our own sphere of influence. So it's not just about, us or what. It's also about what we are doing within our sphere of influence.
Okay. We have to sign off now.
Oh.
Just 1 minute.
Okay.
What would be your advice to the youth, to the followers, and to the leaders? 20 seconds for each.
For the youths, stay away from crime. Stay away from crime.
Well, you see there's no food enough to
well, when I say stay away from crime, there's a lot they can do with ICT. Learn a new skill. You can be in Nigeria and you're working for a company anywhere outside of Nigeria. The skills are there and they come in micro-learnings. You can go on YouTube and learn a lot of stuff even before you have to pay for anything. So leverage technology. Stay away from crime because it's not the best long term. And then for our leaders, it's not easy to be a leader today, but try your best. Give us your best. Give us your best. Deliver on your mandate. And for the followers, we need to also pull through because we are also citizens of Nigeria. We want to enjoy a good Nigeria, pay our taxes, for example, drive properly on the roads and minimize all the traffic jams. It can be the little things as well because people are spending hours in traffic. And sometimes it's not just down to bad roads, it's down to bad driving. So let's have some sanity on our roads. Let's just do the best we can with all the little things that we can.
Mary Laniyan, a leadership coach, corporate governance coach. I don't know what else to call her, but this is a very unassuming lady that has done so much to talk about the world and the country. Thank you for being with us at Soni Irabor Live. And Mary, God bless you.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
So, it's another day, it's another program gone. Next week we'll be again together. Bye-bye now.